Okay, so all right, so we're recording this session. So I will have this as a video presentation for others who would like to look back on it once we are finished up, and I'll have it out hopefully later today. And also, I will also send out the PDF of the slides that I will be showing, so you can have that as a point of reference as well. And I'll have clickable links for you to check out some of the resources I'll be sharing with you. So, so excuse me. So good morning, everybody. If you attended my social media seminar a couple weeks ago, hopefully you were able to kind of check some things out and utilize some of the things that we went over in that session. So today, the focus will be on Google Analytics and essentially website design and metrics to basically understand, or to help you understand the functionality of your website. Is it doing what you want it to do as far as attracting potential donors or customers or things of that nature? So that's what we'll try and tackle today. So let me get onto the share screen spot. There it is. Oops, and someone else is bumped in here. So, okay, there we go. So we'll do that. All right, can everybody see my screen here and my scrolling? Yeah, if you can turn your mics up that way, I can at least hear you.
Yep, I see it.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. Let's get to the first slide here. So, if you have questions, feel free to interject as they come up. I will also try and leave some time at the end for any questions and answers as well. But if there's something that doesn't make sense, or if you want a little more clarification, by all means, just jump in and let me know. I can only see a few of you based on the screen here, so it'd be best if you have a question to just say, hey, Nick, I've got a question, and we can stop right there. So that would probably be the best way to do this. So, all righty, here we go. So, understanding Google Analytics. Here's what we're going to learn today. What is Google Analytics? How can it help you in terms of what you're trying to accomplish on your website? And what kind of tools does it have to help you do that? And just quickly, for those who may not know who I am, I'm originally from Milwaukee. I graduated from UW Milwaukee with a degree in journalism and mass communications. I've worked at several newspapers over 20 years, including the Daily News in West Bend, where I was the editor there for 3 years. Won more than 40 writing awards at several levels. Published a novel in 2012, which reached #2 on AuthorHouse.com's bestseller list. Since 2019, I've been the social media and digital media marketing specialist at the Milwaukee Center for Independence. And since October of 2019, I do the same thing for the West Bend Theater Company. I then also hold certifications in social media marketing, email marketing, content marketing, and Google Analytics. So what is Google Analytics? It is a web analytics service offered by Google that tracks and reports website traffic. And why is that important? Well, understanding the activity on your website allows you to see how users are interacting with your website. Are they finding what they're looking for? How are they finding your website? What pages do they visit on your websites? What are your website demographics? How long are users staying on your website? And what pages are users exiting out of, and possibly why? So to really kind of get an understanding of how the functionality of your website works, this is from entrepreneur.com. What are users typically looking for when they go to a website? They want to know, how is your business unique? They want to get a better understanding of what your company offers, contact information. They want to know where you're located. Third-party validation. Like if you remember from my social media seminar 2 weeks ago, a lot of people will actually go to a Facebook page or a social media page to check out information about you. And then if they're intrigued enough, that's when they'll then click on your website link and then to verify if you're a true, legit business or organization. Secure locket layer or SSL, in other words, data protection, ease of use navigation, clear net guidance on your processes, an ability to give feedback, a clear calls to action or CTA, or see if there's special offers or personalization with your website. So think for a minute about your own website, if you have one. How do users interact with websites? So the top left corner of any website often gets the attention first. In most cases, the logo, your company logo, is often in this location. People read in a style that's called the F patterns. Well, people actually don't read, they more or less scan. Users won't look past the first search results on a Google search page, and that's something we will talk about later on in the presentation. Users will scroll, but only after halfway down the page, holding views drop significantly. That will be something else I'll show you here in a little bit, what I mean by that. The left side of the page gets more of the attention than the right-hand side. So we read left to right, don't we? And so first impressions form in less than a second. If you don't capture the attention in that first second, a user will often click away from the page. So it's really important to understand what is on your front page of your website and how it's structured. All right, so what is an F pattern? So what you see here is called a heat map. And I'll show you a little more of heat maps here in a little bit. So what you see are the red spots, means that is where people are either scrolling or clicking. The redder it is, the more activity on the page itself. And as you kind of see, a lot of people start at the top, go left to right, and then we'll scroll down. But then as you get kind of further down, you see as it gets lighter and lighter, that means that's where you start to lose people. So this really kind of helps in terms of understanding how people are scanning your website. And if you see the third image on the right, that is a Google search page results, or what's called a Google search results page, or SERP. You'll see that the first 2-3 results often have the higher red, but once you get further down, it really starts to drop off. So getting into those first 3 categories is really crucial in terms of helping people find your website. And that's one of the many things we'll go on, we'll discuss later in this session. So just to kind of give you an idea how people on average look at websites. Here's another kind of chart for you to see how people will scan a website. As you see, the upper left-hand corner of a website is often the one that's viewed the most. Again, that's usually where you see company logos placed, is in that upper left-hand corner. The yellow is kind of where you might see drop-down menus, clickable links or extra pages. And then the green spots is where people don't typically go. That's where you start to lose some folks. So what is a heat map? This is from hotjar.com, and Hotjar is actually really kind of neat, and I can talk more about them here. So as you see with the map, the image on the left, where it's in red, that's where most of the users are visiting on a website. That's everybody that comes to your website, that's where everybody's going to be. So that's obviously the top of the page, so everybody's going to see that first. As you kind of scroll down, you see start to get it lighter. And then about halfway down the image, you'll see a line that it's hard to kind of see what it says, but that's kind of the average of views of where a website user will go. And at least in this particular case on this website for Hotjar. Below that, that's when you start losing people who want to scroll down the page. I'm sorry, do we have a question? Okay, I thought I heard somebody. So, the image then on the right is also another asset on hotjar.com in terms of heat maps. They will show clicks. Across the top, you'll see some blue. And then right about in the center, you'll see a little like a lighter yellow. That kind of means more people are clicking on that spot. And then if you go a little further down, maybe kind of actually toward the bottom, you'll see a really bright red spot. That's where the heaviest clicks are. So Hotjar.com actually offers this service. You can do it for free, or there's advanced options that you can do for pay, where it will track these two tools. They'll track how people are scrolling on your website, and it'll track where people are clicking on your website. There are other tools out there where even actually record sessions from users, and you can see exactly what they're scrolling through. And that's really kind of a useful service too. But that can cost a little money to do it. Usually not too much, but there usually is some finances behind it. So, and I mentioned the Google search engine results page. Again, this is another pullout of that little image that I showed you just a little bit ago. As you can see, where people are scrolling and clicking is heavily towards the first two, maybe the third option on the page. Once you get down to the fourth, fifth, or sixth and beyond that, you're not really going to get a lot of clicks. So again, it's really important to kind of you can get yourself set up in those top three spots. And there's a couple of tactics that can help you with that. So here are some statistics about website usage. It takes about 50 milliseconds or 0.05 seconds for users to form an opinion about your website. 57% of internet users say they won't recommend a business with a poorly designed website on mobile. 85% of adults say a company's website, when viewed on mobile device, should be as good or better than the desktop website. Because think about how often people are now on smartphones or tablets and not using desktops. And there are analytics available that you can see how people are viewing what tools they're using to visit your website. Are they on a desktop? Are they on a smartphone? Or are they on a tablet? And I'll show those later on. 38% of people will stop engaging with a website if the content and layouts are unattractive or if they're difficult to manage. This one is here, and this is something that you'll hear a lot from me, and I think is the most important thing in terms of setting up your website. 88% of online consumers are less likely to return to a site after a bad experience. A bad experience is not finding what they're looking for. The site loads too slow. The layout is not very good. There's a lot of areas where people can be quickly turned off by your website. So creating a good user experience is very crucial in order to be able to get your users, but also maintain them for potential return visits or purchases or things of that nature. And then 75% of consumers admit to making judgments on a company's credibility based on the company's website design. What that essentially means, if people think your website is sloppy, they think the way you do business will be sloppy. So that's very important to have a very professional and impressive and appealing website where people feel like you matter with your website design, so therefore you should matter with how you handle your business. So how do you set up the customer experience on a website? What is the journey and experience you want your users or potential customers to take while on your website? Think about this. When people go to your website, what do you want them to accomplish? What do you want them to do? Do you want them to donate? Do you want them to purchase a service or a product? You got to help kind of lead the horse, per se, and lead them to where you want them to go in order to be able to get the conversion that you want. And the way to do that is create what's called a buyer persona or personas. This is understanding who your visitors are on your website, and there are analytics that will show you that. So who are your customers? What are they looking for? Again, visualize. Where do you want them to go? Kind of lead the way like you're leading a horse in the ring. And here's a good quote from a motivational speaker. This guy is brilliant, man, and he puts on a lot of really good presentations. He says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So that's to me, it's a real powerful phrase, is that people really want to know who you are as a company more than what you have. because if you can draw them to you as what kind of company you are and what you represent, what you try to accomplish, you often get better supports and returning customers. So how can Google help with that? And this is not a sales pitch. I do not work for Google, nor am I freelanced or anything like that. There are several tools and services on Google to help website designers, developers, marketers, etc., understand how users are interacting with their website. And the best part, they're free. All these tools I'm going to show you are free. You just need to have a Google and Gmail email accounts. And this is a key phrase here to learn to understand what the importance is on analytics. Analytics is data that shows you insight. It provides, so the data shows you what people are doing to be able to help you make the decisions that you want to make in terms of how your website is structured and how people are finding your website and the, again, user experience. How are we doing on pace? Am I blowing over anything on anybody yet, or do we have any questions at this point?
It's a good pace, Nick. Thank you.
Okay.
Good.
All right. Yeah, like I said, if anybody has questions, just turn up your mics and just jump in and say, hey, Nick, I got a question. So, okay. All right. So how can Google help? Again, not a sales pitch. So search Google Analytics on, you guessed it, Google. Sign in to create to your Gmail or create a Gmail account. I've provided a link that really has a good resource to help you set up your Google Analytics tracking on your website. I needed a little help from my IT department to do it for a couple of websites that I've done. So it's I won't get into the coding and stuff like that, so that's if you have someone that has IT experience, or if you have an IT department at your organization or company, they should be able to help you maybe set up some of the coding that might need to go onto your website if it's not already built onto your website. So, so if you want to set that up on your website, maybe talk to your IT department just to see, or an IT person to see if you can get their help. Oops. All right. So how can Google help? Well, once you have the Google Analytics tracking set up on your website, the amount of data available is going to be overwhelming at first. It's astounding how much data is available to you. But just like with social media, like I talked about 2 weeks ago, you need to look at the key areas based on what you're trying to accomplish with your website. And that will really simplify it in a lot of ways for you to understand what's going on your website. All right, so before we keep going, here are some terms to know that you'll see on Google Analytics that will help you understand what these definitions mean. So a bounce rate is a percentage of users to visit a page on your website, and that's the only page they view. So say if somebody finds your website, they look at the home page, and then they click off of it, there will be a bounce rate for that visit by that user. An exit rate is the percentage of users who visited more than one page and ended their session on that page. So say if somebody goes to your home page and then clicks on, let's say, your jobs tab, and then after they scroll on the jobs tab, then they click off of the jobs, that will count toward an exit rate. Users is the number of users to visit your site. Sessions is the number of sessions or visits to your site, and that includes one person that may look at your site 10 times. So essentially, if there is a click or a visit to your website, that will count as a session. These are some terms you'll see in the Search Console and the search tools with Google Analytics. The direct is a user directly types your website into their browser. So they pull up Google or whatever website browser they have, and they type in your exact website. That is called a direct hit. Organic is a search engine, which is either Google, Yahoo, or Bing, or other search engines. So if you pull up your browser and say Google is the first page that is like your default home page when you open your internet browser, and then you type in, let's say, West Bend Theater Company, there will be a hit to the West Bend Theater Company website. That will be called an organic search. A referral is called is a referral source to your website, such as if you have a feature story done by a news outlet, for example, say Fox 6, and they post a link in your in a story that they did on you. It's like, hey, if the sentence will say, click here, visit the West Bend Theater Company's website for more information, and they'll have maybe a direct link, or maybe it's a direct link from an advertisement that you're placing on a website page like a media outlet. That will be called a referral. Other terms to know is L.Facebook, and I'll show you where you would find this information. It means user came to your website through a link on your Facebook page. So say if you have a post on your Facebook page and you include a link to your website, if somebody clicks on that link, that will count as a L.Facebook referral on your Google Analytics. M.Facebook means the user came to your website via Facebook through a mobile device, like a tablet or a smartphone. And then LM Facebook means the user came to your website via Facebook by clicking a link from a mobile device. And then I've got a link here to help you make use of Google search engine results for your business. It's a really good blog on how to set up Google and how to set up your search engine and keywords to help you get your ranking on Google a little higher. So that will be a very valuable source for you once you're done with this seminar. All right, now we're going to get into some fun stuff here. All right, so we're looking at the Google Analytics for the West Bend Theater Company from a couple weeks ago. So this is the home page when you log on to a Google Analytics for your website. Excuse me. So these next couple slides will actually show you different sections. There is a lot of information here that's available. So what you can see here is how many users have been on your website, and at the bottom where it says last 7 days, you can change that to whatever time span you want. It will show you revenue, conversion rates, and then the number of sessions. On the right-hand side in blue, you'll see active users right now. What that tells you is that there is somebody on your website at that particular moment, and they'll show you exactly what page they're on. All right, this is a little further down on the home screen. This shows the referral source or how people are finding your websites. You see at the bottom, you see social, organic search, referral, direct, or other. And you'll see how it corresponds to a day during the course of the week. So as you see on the 18th, we had a lot of visits to the West Bend Theater Company's website. And the reason for that is, if hopefully you saw that the West Bend Theater Company and the Bend launched a fundraising campaign to raise money for a new lighting control board for the downtown West Bend Theater. So as you can see, we had a lot of website views, and how in that graph will show you how people found it based on the color codes along the bottom. Okay, again, still on that home page. Now this shows you how the users are logging onto your website and how often, and are they returning? Are we retaining users and visits? That's what you can track here on this part. And then on the bottom, you can see active users report. So you can get it expanded by clicking on the active users report at the bottom of the screen. Still on the home screen. This shows you when people are on your website and what particular day, what particular time, where they are logging from, anywhere in the United States or even outside the country. And they also show you by what kind of device they're using, a desktop, a mobile, or a tablet. Again, really gives you a good understanding of how people are using your websites when they're on it, so you can tailor certain things to it. And understanding the desktop, mobile, and tablet lets you understand, how people are viewing your website. So where we talked about how websites that look a little sloppy, and if they're not laid out nicely on mobile, but they look good on desktop, then you need to look at how your mobile site is laid out. So in this case here, it's almost a little more than majority visit the West Bend Theater Company's website, at least this particular week, through desktop, but also 41.8% through mobile. And again, that's something to kind of keep in mind, to making sure that your layout of your website is attractive on the desktop, but also it's equally as important, if not more important, on mobile. That's because of how often, or more often now, that we're visiting websites and other stuff on mobile devices than we've ever had before. Again, a little further down on that home page, what pages do your users visit? So the graph or the chart here in the center shows what website pages on your website people are going to. So the top one there with just the backslash, that's typically your home page. So if you think of your website address, the last item, the last character that's on a website is usually the slash. And then from there, you'll see like /news. So that means that's a different page on your website. And it's basically, how does your URL end? That's how these pages are marked and tracked on Google, and it can show you the page visits. Okay, so again, we're going to go back up toward the top, and then we're going to click on real time. And this is if you click on that, this is what you'll see. So you see at this particular time, there was one person on the website, and they showed you a rough area of where they were logging in from. So I think in this case, it was probably Milwaukee. But this will show you the general area of where people are visiting your website. And it's based on the IP address that they are sitting at. So it could be either at home, it could be on their laptop, or it could be on their smartphone device. It's basically how their IP address on their device is working. And then shows you active page. So it means what page is that user on right in this particular moment. So you can see, okay, that person's interested in that. And if you watch it long enough, you can kind of watch them click and what sites they're visiting. So maybe from homepage, if you sit and watch for a little bit, you can see them, okay, maybe go to a different page, or if they log off the session. Okay. All right, as along the left-hand side, you'll see a tab that's called Audience, and then Overview. This gives you, just like it says, an overview of the audience over a particular week. You can set, it's in the upper right-hand corner. You can't really see it right now just because I have to scroll a little further down, but it is on the top. It would be on the top right-hand corner where it could set the time span that you want to evaluate. So as the line graph shows you, this is the number of visits we had to the website. And again, as you saw November 18th, that's just after the West Bend Theater Company announced its holiday fundraising campaign. So this here shows you the new users, how many new users to your website, meaning people that have never been to your website, based on the IP address. Now that person may have been on that computer, on a computer and seen your website, but then they log on to maybe a mobile device for the first time. That's what a new user will count toward that. Now, is the number of sessions, so how many logins or hits to your website have there been? Number of sessions per user, so in this case, it's 1.31, so on average, the users were coming back to our website. Total page views and pages per session. Pages per sessions mean how many pages did somebody view your website on average. So in this case, it's 4.5 pages. How long were they on your website? That's what session duration means. It's 3 minutes and 20 seconds. And then there's that phrase bounce rate. That means, again, if that reminder, bounce rate is the number, is the percentage of users that visit your website and don't visit any other page on your website. So at 8%, that means 92% of the people who came to the West Bend Theater Company's website went to a different page after they got to the initial page that they landed on. So that's a strong number. But keep in mind, and I'll go over this too, bounce rate is a little tricky because you got to understand how your website functions in order to evaluate if that's actually a good number or a bad number. I mean, if you obviously you'd love to see those numbers low, but if there's a certain way your website is structured to where you force them to go to a different page, then that's going to draw down your bounce rate. So say if you click, say have them go to their home page and then they have to look for something else on your page, like the About Us section, that will then go toward the exit rates in Google Analytics rather than the bounce rate. Whereas maybe if you give them a direct link to a page, so say if you provide them the direct link to the About Us section on your website. People will click on that and they're like, oh, okay. Then they'll click off of that page. That will count towards your bounce rate. So it's kind of, again, leading them to where you want them to go. So necessarily, if you have a low bounce rate, it's good and bad, depending on how you're telling people to come to your website and how you want them to view your website. Again, on the left-hand side, there's another tab called Acquisition. This shows you how people got to your website, whether it's through a social referral, a referral through another website source, whether they directly type your website link onto your web browser, an organic search, or even an email campaigns that you send out. There are, I know MailChimp and Constant Contact are two resources if you're doing email blasts, like for newsletters and so forth. They offer the tool where you can track Google, and they'll put a Google Analytics tab on the email. And if somebody clicks to your website from your email newsletter, that will be tracked in Google Analytics. So again, this really just helps you understand how people are getting to your website. So if you have this big, massive email campaign, for example, like we just had Giving Tuesdays, so something that would be really important for nonprofits. So if you send out a few email blasts, say, hey, we would like your donation to such and such company or West Bend Theater Company, please visit our website to donate. And if you put a link to your website in the email blast, you can track if people clicked on the website from the email, and then from there, you can actually see how they visited throughout your website. And that's something will come up here in a little bit, and how you can possibly track that. Any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, just want to make sure, because I know this is kind of a lot to process. It took me a little bit to kind of process it as well. But again, if you have questions, feel free to jump in. Not to mention, I'll give my voice a little break. I'm just going to hit the button. Great. And then under acquisition here on the left-hand side, if you were to then click on all traffic, you have a couple different options here. And this is one I like to use a lot, because this shows the referrals to your website, or the source of how people found your website. So as you see at the top, there's that m.facebook.com. That means people visited the West Bend Theater Company's website by a click from a mobile device. Underneath that, the second one is called direct. That's when somebody typed in West Bend Theater Company's exact email address on their website. Number 3 was tmj4.com. So what happened there is we had TMJ4 put a story out about us and the fundraising campaign that we had, which, by the way, if you haven't donated, there's still time there. That's my sales pitch for the morning. So what they did with the stories, like, if you would like to donate to this fundraiser, here's the link and how to do that. And because it's on our website, we have the Google Analytics tracked, it shows that we had 15 hits from TMJ4's story to our website. And that's really neat to know, just to make sure if you are sending news and information out to media outlets like a TMJ4 or Fox 6 or whatnot, or if you're placing an advertisement with those organizations or wherever you're putting them, that's a good thing to know. Is like, okay, are we sending these links out, and are they posting on the TMJ4's website, or is it an ad? Are people clicking on them? This is a great gauge to understand if your advertising and outreach efforts are paying off. And scrolling a little further down, you got Google, which is obviously just an organic Google search. And then there's one of those l.facebook. That means somebody visited the website by clicking on Facebook from a desktop site. And then an email sign up. Like I said, if you had asked people to visit your website through an email newsletter or email blast, it shows you that I had 4 people that particular week that clicked on the website from an email blast. And I just showed the top 10, but it can show every single one of your referrals. There are menu options that help you expand beyond the top 10 if you like. So this is a really good resource. As you can also see, the other options or data entries are excuse me, or new users, session, there's the bounce rate. So you can see the bounce rate of the, just get based on how people found your website. So you can see that it's, I think it's 5.26% of people who visited the West Bend Theater Company's website through a mobile link on Facebook. 95% of those people clicked to another page, but 33% only did it from a direct click to our website. So that just helps you understand if people are going to other pages. And you can see pages per session is how many pages per session per source. So in the 15 users that went to the West Bend Theater Company's website from TMJ4, their average number of sessions, pages per that session was 5, and shows you session duration, and also it shows you some conversion rates. Did it lead to any kind of purchases? And we can go over that a little bit here in just a smidge. Okay. Another fun spot here is called behavior. And this spot here again shows you a lot of the same information that I'll show you for audience. But really where behavior kind of gets interesting is with some of the other options underneath this category. And one of the favorite ones I have is this one. This one's called behavior flow. What this exactly shows you is how users are flowing through your website. You can highlight the different options, like in the upper left-hand corner, right under landing page. That means that's the page people land on. So if you give them the direct link to your homepage, your direct link, that will be counted as the landing page / starting page. And then from there, you can take your cursor and over the green, this is an image, so I couldn't do it, but I've got an activity that will show you exactly how this works. It will show you where people are going from that page. So from your homepage. So if you can see maybe first interaction, the top one was events, then underneath our board of directors page, then donate, the Bring Up the Lights campaign, which is the name of the holiday fundraiser. Where it shows the red, that means that indicates there were drop-offs, so meaning people clicked away from the site from there. And then you can go to the second interaction, and then even further to the third interaction. So this is probably the one I use the most, is it really helps me understand how people are flowing through the website and where I might be losing them. And then you can use that information to figure out, is that page providing the information to the user that they're looking for, or is it not? Again, so that's really where website structure and functionality, understanding that is really, really important to understand how people are flowing with your website. This is, like I said, this is probably the most important tool I use in order to understand how people are viewing the website. And if you look in that green bar where it says landing page, there's a ton of different options that you can work with. If you have an email campaign or newsletter, you can highlight campaign, and you can see just only the users that visited your website through your email campaign. How did they flow through the website? So this is a really important tool that I like to use a lot to really help me understand how people are interacting and understanding your website and searching your website to find what they are looking for. And underneath are conversions. This is something you can set up in Google Analytics as well, is if you want to track donations or sales, you can do that here on this site. I had to actually get a little IT help for this initially. I don't do this a lot, but there are definitely lots of resources out there that can help you set up goals. YouTube is a terrific tool. There are so many how-to things on YouTube. But this is a tool that you can utilize to see if you are doing a Giving Tuesday campaign. You can set that on this website based specifically on a page from your website. You just put in the search tool or the keywords in your conversion setup, and every time someone goes to that page, it will show as a conversion, and if there was a conversion rate, and if there was money attached to it. So that really helps you understand if maybe some marketing efforts or advertising are paying off too. All right, so we're back to that page and how Google can help in terms of some of the terms that we threw at you earlier. So again, bounce rate is the percentage of users to visit a page on your site that's the only page they view. Now, what is a good rate? 41 to 55% is considered, in most cases, a good average. So what happens if you have a high bounce rate? Say it's above 70%. That can mean several things. One, the website doesn't contain the information the user is looking for. Or like I mentioned before, if you directly link to that site, the user may have found what they were looking for. They're like, okay, you brought the awareness to them. So say if you give them a link to a products page or your shop or whatever the case may be, people can see it as like, okay, well, I scroll, okay, nothing, okay. And then that's the page they leave. So it doesn't necessarily mean you didn't attract or grab the attention of the user. So that, again, going back to website functionality, is what site or what page are they on to understand good bounce rate. Now, if you give them your main website address and you have a high bounce rate, then that maybe you need to start thinking that where that first bullet point might be setting in, where the website's not containing the user information that they're looking for, or some of the other things we talked about earlier. The layout is not appealing, or the website took too long to load. Those were some things that you can understand there for those options. And the same can be said for the bounce for a low bounce rate. Say it's less than 20%. It's again understanding the functionality of your website. When you have people go to your website or a certain page on your website, are they going to where they should be going based on what you're trying to get them to accomplish? You're probably not, if you're in something that offers a product or service. Usually takes a couple of visits before somebody's convinced that they want to utilize your service. That's where new users or returning users is a good thing to keep in mind. So again, you have to consider how your website is structured to get an understanding why people might be behaving like they are. So like we mentioned, just if you're having them go to certain pages, or if you give them direct links, is that what they're looking for? Is that what you want them to look for? Again, that's why it's really important to understand how your website is structured and how it's laid out in order to understand how people are reacting to it, and if you need to make the necessary adjustments to cater toward the goals that you're trying to accomplish through your website. All right, these next couple slides are just Excel spreadsheets that I like to put together. I put these in manually, but there are also options where you can export them in PDF or Google Spreadsheets on Google Analytics. But this is an example of a spreadsheet that I have with the Milwaukee Center for Independence. And each week I track how people find the website and put down all the data. And why I do this is I look for trends. So I noticed that organic search is the way how people find Milwaukee Center for Independence's website, direct, social, and referral. So that way I know how that's the referral source. And then the source medium is the type of source. Is it a Google search? Is it Bing, Facebook? Is it another website? These are just things I like to track and monitor the trends to help understand where people are finding our website. Therefore, I can present to my supervisor, okay, this is what people are doing with our website, and this is how we're finding it. Then that can help us with our digital marketing goals. Here's another one I like to use. This is off of the audience and behavior views. Again, this is just showing just trends. This is what I'm looking for. What I'm trying to understand is what are the trends. And then here is behavior that I use. Again, this is looking for a trend. What pages on the MCFI website are getting the most hits? And 9 times out of 10, the homepage is going to get your top views. In this case, for Milwaukee Center for Independence, the next most popular page was jobs, then behavioral health, then about MCFI, services for adults, and so forth. So what this data shows me is, okay, how many people have come to the website, how many views have it had, how has this particular page performed. As you can imagine, with jobs and services for adults, those are just informational pages. We don't have any transactional things that you can do with the MCFI website. So services for adults just lists services. So the way MCFI's website is structured, so under the services for adults section, It's just a list of services that are offered. But if people want to get more information or sign up for them, then there's contact information that way. So you can't actually purchase services on the MCFI website. So that's why you want to, again, understand how your functionality in your website is working. All right. Now we're going to get into a little activity. Do we need a quick break or do we want to keep going? Okay. All right. Well, we're going to jump into some of the analytics stuff that I just showed you. Okay. So this is the active Google Analytics page. If anybody can't see this, let me know. All right, so right now you can see there are no people on the West Bend Theater Company website. So actually what I would like everybody to do is grab a phone or grab your computer and type in wbtheaterco.com. And then once you do that, watch the blue option. See what's happening? It is now showing me that there are 2 users on my website or on the West Bend Theater Company's website. So just kind of stay on the site for now. So we're going to scroll here to the left-hand side where it says real time. I'm going to do the drop-down menu. I'm going to click on overview. Look at that. So it shows me two users are on the West Bend Theater Company's website, and they are doing it with a mobile device. It shows me what pages you're on. So one person is on the home page, the other person is on the events page, and it's showing me exactly where you're logging in from. Okay, now we got a third user on the auditions page. So then if you want to scroll over these orange, it shows you the area of where somebody is. So there's some Berlin, there's a few West Bends. Just kind of helps you understand who's on the website and where they might be logging in from. Here's some other things you can, so there's locations, and then there's traffic sources, the content, events, and conversions. Kind of cool, hey? All right.
This is awesome, Nick. Really nice.
This is kind of, it may look like it's a little creepy, but you're doing this really to understand where people are visiting your website. It's like you have a lot of local, or especially if you do a lot of business out of state, this is a really good thing to understand and where people are logging from. So say if you have like an ad campaign in Minnesota, or people from Minnesota clicking on your website. We have a chat here, hold on. Oh, there we go. Yeah, it's really cool. It's quite fascinating stuff. So
Nick, I have a question. So I was doing a little playing myself while you were going, and so
Sorry, hold on. Who's talking?
Hi, this is Barb Pomeroy.
Okay, hi Barb. Okay, go ahead.
So is there something you need to embed into the code of your website to like make the linkage to the analytics?
It depends on how your website is set up and who might have set up your website. That's why I say talking to someone with IT, or talk to the person who set up your website. There are certain website hosts like Wix.com has that built in already into their offering and services. There are other websites that may not. If you had somebody that you contracted to design your website, it may not hurt to ask them, hey, did you build a Google Analytics onto our website? If not, can you help me do that? It really depends on who set up your website and how they set it up. So that's why I say either talk to the person or team or business that set up your website, or somebody from IT.
Okay.
Those would be people you would want to talk to, because every website is built differently based on who set it up.
Okay, thanks. Sorry to.
No, that's quite right. If you have questions like that, yeah, because because that was one of the first questions I had asked an IT department when I wanted to set up the Google Analytics for MCFI was, had that been set up? And the answer was no. So we had to have it set up through the help of the IT department. Now the West Bend Theater Company on the other side had that already built in because they use Wix as their website host, and Wix offers that as part of their services. To when you create a website through Wix.com, that is already built into any kind of website you build through them, as the Google Analytics tracking is already there. You just need to connect it to your Gmail or account.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. All righty. So, but yeah, this is, and then it's just kind of showed you the page views here across the top. And sometimes the top referrals, top social traffic, top keywords, you notice there's people on it, but it doesn't show the data. Sometimes that has to do with the security settings on your computer or that user's computer. So if nothing pops up here, that's okay. But there are times where that stuff will come up. All right, so I'm going to go down to the behavior flow. Well, actually, let me do audience real quick. So active users. So it just kind of showed you the trend of the active users. Now here's where you can learn a little bit more too. And here on the left-hand side is, and you can lower demographics. Okay, you can click on overview. That's the demographics of the West Bend Theater Company. So as we can see, 33.5% of the people who visit our website are in the 25 to 34 age group. Kind of the same thing here. I don't know why. Then you got, it's not showing me gender for some reason. Ah, there it is. So this shows me how many, is it male or female? And then what are those interests? Sometimes people have designated interests based on their website activity that Google tracks that, just based on maybe their search history. All right, now we're looking at geography. So, all right, this shows language. As you imagine, we got more people speak English, but we also have somebody visited from Australia. And then location. So it shows you, there's our 17 visits from the United States. And then we had one person from Pakistan, which I don't know why they would look at it, but that's what it shows. So there's their behavior. So are they a new or returning visitor? And you can see that. So for that week up above, we had 16 new users to our website and 2 returning ones. And shows me what they did on the website. So technology, are they using, what kind of browser are they using? Because different browsers work differently with different websites. Mobile, what kind of devices are they using? So it's just the wealth of the depth of knowledge you get from this is just, like I said, in the first time you start playing around with it, it can be overwhelming. But again, if you look at some of the key areas, it definitely simplifies it a lot. All right, so then here's acquisition, all traffic, and goes to channels. So this shows me how people found it. So I had 7 from direct, which means people directly typed in the website. So the people that logged into the website here today, after today, that will show as a direct user visit in my Google Analytics, because it updates every single day at the end of the day, or essentially at 11:59 p.m. or midnight. Tree maps, I don't really use all that much, but I can show you what they are. It's just, again, just shows you how people found your website. Again, here's that source medium spot. So this, so I think for the graphic, yeah, so this is for the stuff visits to our website this week. So we've had 18 visits to our website this week, and you saw we have 1 from TMJ4, we got 3 through our email campaign, and then 5 from a mobile link on Facebook, and then 7 who directly typed in the website. And then you can break down your referrals even further to understand where they're coming from. So in this case, you got the mobile Facebook, you got the desktop Facebook, and then a link on Facebook. And this one is the link from a desktop, and then there's TMJ4. If you place in Google ads or any ads on Google, that will come up here. Just keep watching our time here. So that is on here as well. But here's again, I think the other part, I'm going to kind of skip over the other parts here, but here's the behavior. This is, again, the one I wanted to look at, and this is the behavior flow. All right, so as you can see, this is the behavior flow chart for the website of the West Bend Theater Company for this week. So if you scroll over one of these, it's kind of like your link. All right, so I'm looking at, okay, so the people came to the home page. All right, so the first page they do interact with is the home page. As you can see, there was 9 users of the 11 that went to another page on the site. There are 2 that dropped off. All right, so now let's click on it, and you can do highlight traffic through here, and watch what happens when I do this. That will track what those people did, those 11 users, what they did. So as you remember, 9 people went from the home page to another page. Well, those 9 people went to the Bring Up the Lights campaign page on our website. 8 of them went to another page on the site. In this case, a product page, or in this case, we set up the donation tab. So that means we had 1 person who dropped off. We had then another person who went from the home page to the board of directors page and then went up back to the home page. See what I mean? How you can really see how people flow with your website. This is really kind of a fascinating tool, but really gives you a great perspective on how people are searching and surfing your website. Okay. All right, so we're going to jump back into it here and go into another one of the Google's tools. Excuse me. All right, and that is called Google Search Console. Another free tool that outlines how users are finding your website based on the search terms they're putting into Google. So from Northwoods Software Company, here are some statistics about Google searches. 60% of searches do not result in a click. Most of the time, think of how people typically do things on Google. It's where can I find the nearest restaurant or the nearest Italian restaurant? And I'll show you what a search engine results page looks like. It'll give you the options, and then you can get the options, and you can be in that first couple lines. And that's all people want to know is, okay, where's the nearest restaurant? Okay, it's 10 miles from here. Okay, perfect. That's what I needed to know. And that's really all sometimes people will do. As you see, as of January 2018, there were an estimated 1 billion voice searches per month, and that number is growing as we get more and more voice search things with Alexa. Google just actually came out with one as well. And then here's a quote from Google's blog. The perfect search engine should understand exactly what you mean and give you back exactly what you want. So when people are trying to search your website, is your website giving them what they are looking for and what they want? So here's a Google search engine results page. So the search was lawnmowers. And you have a lot of different options here. Something to keep in mind, they are tailored to the search query and history of the user. So how somebody might put in lawnmowers may differ from the next person who looks for it, just based on their search history. So as you can see here, it's a lot of times with search engines, advertisements in Google will always be pushed to the top. And I will talk about this here in a little bit. Listing at the top organically, meaning no paid advertisements, is very difficult. As you can see, right at the top, we have ads for lawnmowers, and they're from different stores. All right, and then down on the bottom below it is a hit for Home Depot. And then there's a map at the bottom that shows you different locations that sell, that sell lawnmowers. So think back to what we just said, 60% of searches don't result in a click. Well, if somebody's looking for a lawnmower, these things right here may be all that they're looking for, is how much do they cost and what locations sell them. So if you're a lawnmower service and that doesn't have paid advertising, you're going to be bumped down the page a little bit. So just something to keep in mind. Yeah, ads are everywhere. Therefore, it's hard to rank #1 organically. Well, technically in Google search, the first spot there where the Google is highlighted, that is called the 0 position. That means that is the top position on a search engine results page. Then each one after that then goes from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3. If you can get in the top 3 organically, you're doing a terrific job in terms of getting your search engine and your search words and your keywords on your website. But because ads are everywhere and Google, like any other business, likes to make money, the advertisements are going to be up or closer to the top. So that's why it really emphasizes a little more importance about what keywords are on your website, because that does actually help bump up your Google ranking. So there's a website, it's called Google Search Console. Again, just search for in Google. And this is the front page of what you'll get. And this is for the West Bend Theater Company. This will show you how many times people clicked. The performance means how many times people clicked on your website when your website appeared in a search engine result. And then that map on the bottom is coverage. What that shows is how many pages are being tracked by Google. You have to register each site with Google, and Google will do that automatically. But if there is a site, if you make changes to a website, or if you introduce a new page to your website, you may have to do what's called crawling. And I'm pretty sure I touch on that later on, just so to alert Google that you have a new page on your website and it needs to be tracked for Google search engine results. Because if Google doesn't know about it, Google's not going to sweep through your website and not pick up that new page. And therefore this new page that you might have created, say if it was a Giving Tuesday donation page, you have to alert them, otherwise it's not going to appear in a search result, or if it does, it's going to be way down the list. All right, so let's click on, I'm going to click on performance. And let's see here. Yeah, so this shows me total. So for the last 3 months on the West Bend Theater Company's website, shows me the total clicks, the total number of impressions, means how many views, and the average click-through rate is 3.5. I'll give you the number of where to shoot from, but usually if you can get anywhere between 5 and 10%, that's usually pretty solid. And then average position, I don't really pay attention to that number if I'm looking at it at the grand scheme, because there's so many search tips or search queries that really can drive down that positioning. What's more important is the next slide I'm going to show you. And this is called your queries menu. And this is exactly what people typed into Google, and then how many impressions, so how many times it appeared in a search result and how many clicks it resulted in. And you can do this for however many you've got. And in this case, in the last 3 months, there were 227 opportunities based on website queries through Google, or what West Bend Theater Company came up as a search result. And it could be anywhere from the top spot all the way down to the 1000th place, whatever the case may be. So, but this will show you how people, what keywords or what people are typing to try and find your website. And if they find it, are they clicking on it? So as you can see, the top 2 are really kind of self-explanatory. People are looking for West Bend Theater Company. That's typically what you're going to see, is whatever business, the name of your business is typically going to be in those top 2 queries. But what I'm looking at too underneath is maybe theater groups near me. So say if somebody wants to see a show by the West Bend Theater Company, but they don't know anything about the West Bend Theater Company, they'll type in maybe theater groups near me. Okay, well, then this tells me that in those 3 months that there were 13 appearances in the Google search results, and it got 1 click. So say if we, okay, So back up a tad. All right, so if we're going to click on the, well, I'm not going to click on it, but if you were to click on your first query or any query here in your menu, and you can see at the bottom where it says rows per page, you can drop that down to as many as 1,000 if you have that many. Oops, wrong button. All right, so if I'm clicking on West Penn Theater Company, this gives me exact breakdown of the search results. So it told me 87 clicks out of 137 impressions means a 63% click-through rate. And as you can see, the average position was 1. So right at the top of the search engine result, which is obviously where you want to be. Here's another one that's related to Google Search Console. It's called Google Data Studio. This one helps me do it a little more broadly, and where I can also monitor trends a little easier, because the way the Google Search Console works is you constantly have to change the dates and the query, and so it can become a little problematic in terms of just time constraints. But Google Data Studio really kind of helps you break it down and helps you monitor trends. So if you go down to the bottom, this is for the MCFI's website, the Milwaukee Center for Independence. So if I were to click on the one that says the Google Search Console data MCFI website, this is what I get. And this is something that you can set up through Google Data Studio as long as your analytics and console are all set up together. So this shows me a broader range of what people were searching for based on their queries and where these positions ranked and how many and what their click-through rates were. So there's a lot of different queries that people do. So a lot of people, if you remember from the MCFI website, a lot of people look for the main site, and a lot of people look for jobs on Milwaukee Center for Independence site. So you see number 4 was MCFI jobs. So there were 27 impressions, so meaning 27 results that resulted in 5 clicks and a click-through rate of 18.52%, and the average position was 2. So that's about the 3rd spot down. So you're still kind of in the top half of the Google search pages. Now, when you start thinking about 3 or 4 is when you start having to scroll, and that's where you start seeing the drop-offs and clicks on search results. So, and how do you set up the Google Data Studio? Well, you would open up you go back to the main screen here. So you have in the upper left-hand corner is called Create, and it'll actually, or then here at this top, we'll also have you can start with a simple template. So you would click on Blank Report, and then it will ask you, I don't have it here just because just from the time constraints. I know we're about 15 minutes from the end here. I think I'm almost finished here. So if we get to 9:30, if people have to jet, by all means, don't feel free obligated that you have to stick around. Again, this is being recorded, so, and I'll share it with everybody afterwards. So, but then once you have this, your data that you want to track connected, you can adjust it based on the chart and table options on the right-hand side. And it can give you all the data that you want. So what can you do to help your search engine results page? Well, use keywords in your URL. For example, if you're selling lawnmowers, try to maybe work lawnmowers into your website title or URL or your page title. With images on your website, use understandable names. Example, like Briggs & Stratton Lawnmower 01, for example. Remember, try to think of words, because Google searches and what's called crawls through websites to search for these key terms to help people find what they're looking for. No spaces or in file or folder names because Google will not look past any spaces. Website speed, using too high resolution photos dramatically slow down speed of a website. And remember, user experience, if it takes forever for the website to load, you're going to lose them. And likely they're not going to come back. So think about saving your photos on a smaller scale. And in many cases, there's the save for the web options, which compresses the image to keep its resolution to where it's not looking very pixelated, but it makes it more website friendly. And make sure your website is littered with keywords and phrases people might use to search and find your website. And then remember, it's about the user experience. Provide the content, the right content your users want. Give them what they're looking for. If you're not giving them what they're looking for, they're not going to find what they're looking for, and therefore you're creating a bad experience on your website. And going back to earlier in the presentation, 88% of users who have a bad experience on a website don't come back. So Give them what they're looking for. Keep in mind search intent. When people are searching for your website, what do you want them to find? All right, so in closing, there's some bullet points to remember to keep from going forward. Make sure you have identified what are the keywords to help identify what it is that you do, and make sure they are on your website. If you have to put them on there 20 times, by all means do it 20 times, because people are not going to look at that closely and realize, oh, there's lawnmowers is on this page 20 times. They're on a lawnmowers website. They're going to expect that. They're not going to dive into it that much. Understanding Google Analytics gives you the data that provides insight about your website. Understanding Google Search Console, the Data Studio, gives you data that provides insights about how users find your website and if they are clicking on it. Create a welcoming and informative customer journey on your website. If they don't enjoy it or don't find what they're looking for, they're not going to come back. And understand who your customers or your website visitors are. Something to keep in mind, Google recently unveiled a new Google Analytics program called G4. There are some tweaks made to it from the previous version. That's why it's okay to ask your help from anyone that's IT experience. I have not been trained on it yet. I'm kind of waiting for a couple webinars to come up about it. But I'm giving you this information now so you can at least start get the baseline of how Google Analytics works. So I've played around with the new system a little bit. There are some tweaks to it that may make it a little different, but as long as you have the basic understanding of the Google Analytics program that I've given you today, you'll be able to pick up on this. Maybe that's something I can provide later on, Lisa, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Contacting me. Always feel free to contact me if you have questions about Google Analytics or the social media that I gave last week or 2 weeks ago. That's my contact information. Again, feel free to contact me if you have some questions. Here's my slight sales pitch, but again, it's no cost. Subscribe to my blog. I blog a lot about social media trends, how-tos, and digital and social media marketing. I have a pretty amount of good resources and connections to help people understand those topics and help with new news topics like it was, I think a week or so ago, Instagram rolled out some major changes to his platform, so I blogged about it. So any questions?
Really nice, Nick.
Hey,
Very
Nick, it's Gail. I have a question.
All right, just let me hold on here.
Where am I here?
All
Oh,
right. Gail, you have a question.
I do. I'm going to turn my video on from that. Hi. So thank you. These have been really nice and informative. We have a situation where, so we're an agent of US Cellular. So US Cellular kind of controls our website. It's a microsite. So I'm not even sure that I have access to the Google Analytics at this point. And how, maybe I missed it, but where would I check to see, how would I even try to get to that?
That would be, so you said US Seller runs your website?
Yeah, it's a microsite. Yeah, they run it.
Okay, so they would probably be the ones that would have that information in terms of tracking. So I would ask them if that's something that they do, and if it's something that they'll let you do on the website. That's probably where I would start with that question. Because if you're not the direct host, then you'll have to talk to the direct host or whoever is.
So also, I do have semi-control over all the Google listings. So I have a Google business account where I can go in and respond to comments or change the hours, things like that, make sure that our information is correct. Mm-hmm. And there's some analytics that go along with that. And that's a whole different ball of wax, it seems.
I am not quite understanding your question.
So, so I do have control of the Google business listings. I find that to be really important that we keep that up to date with addresses and hours.
Okay.
So if someone's searching for US Cellular near me, our name comes up
Okay.
pretty quickly.
Okay.
Or even if they put in ConnectCell or even US Cellular based on location, our stuff has come up because we're constantly looking at Google reviews. If someone puts a Google review in, even if it's 10 o'clock at night, I'm trying to respond. So that's helping our SEO
Right.
on the Google search.
Mhm.
But I was looking at it on my phone while you were talking, and there's some analytics that go along with that also. But the question is, so how is that, are those interconnected somehow? Or they both are going to affect our SEO?
Yeah,
I'm not
it
sure what the
it
question
kinda
is.
goes back to the hosts and how the website was set up.
I'm sorry, wait.
It's going to kind of come back to how the website was set up and how it was constructed initially. It sounds like those are options that have already been built into the analytics.
Yeah, this is something separate. It's not the website. It's just like Google listings. So,
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Yeah, because what Google does is they make the connection between the two. They recognize that it's the same company, so they put the analytics with both.
okay. Okay, just wondering about the relationship between the two.
Yeah, because especially if you're using the same Google login that the website host has, that's kind of how it's set up.
Okay.
And I don't think I'm getting you the best question or best answer.
I'm not sure I gave you a question either, so.
No,
Fair.
that's what I think would be happening there is however the website was initially set up by whomever did it. Google does a pretty good job in walking a lot of people through in how to set up your analytics tracking.
Mhm.
And it could recognize that your business listing is the same as whatever is logged with Google. That's what it sounds like is happening, but I don't really know 100% sure, but I said that's what it sounds like is happening and how it's set up. So I
I think it's, yeah,
apologize. I
it's a
can't really answer it better, but that's my hunch based on what you're telling me.
okay, all right, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? All right. Comments, jokes, quips, Christmas carols, anything like that? Yeah. All right. Well, I think we just got it in under time. So unless there's any questions, we'll ramp it up. So really appreciate everybody following along and listening to my presentation today. Oops, what's the message here? If anybody, like I said, if anybody has questions, whether this seminar or the one I gave on social media a couple weeks ago, if you do go to my blog, that presentation is still there. So if you want to check that out, by all means, go ahead. Again, thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you guys take away some things from today. I will send out the link, the video link for this, as well as the PDF. Then also, if you could, I'd really appreciate it if everybody could fill out a survey too, just to kind of help me with my presentation in terms of how I structured it, the pace, and what you might have learned from today. So if you can do those things for me, I would really, really appreciate it because that will help with future presentations. So until then, unless I talk to anybody before that, everybody have a safe and happy holiday season, and thanks again.